we got some good volume. Can you hear me okay? All right, so you guys are here because you want to be rock stars, right? All right, so we are going to chat about the 5 Rockstar questions that you should ask yourself and ask of a company when you're thinking of buying into a franchise. I'm hoping that my presentation will keep you on the edge of your seats. Not because you are, because you're interested, not because you're trying to get the nerve to leave. All right. That was my joke for the day. So we're going to talk about the 5 Rockstar questions you need to ask when considering joining a franchise. All right, and I'm going to start with, here's my agenda. So we're going to talk about my F3 background. I'm going to tell you a little story. And we're going to talk about why you're here. We're going to do a little franchise 101. And then we're going to get to the 5 Rockstar questions. And if you're good and you're behaving, then I might have a bonus for you. And then some Q&A. All right, so I grew up with a company that did okay in franchising. You might have heard of M&M Meat Shops. Has anybody here heard of M&M Meat Shops? All right, so the company, my dad's the founder. He's one of the M's in M&M Meat Shops. And the company grew to 470 stores across Canada. And this is a picture from the early 80s when we had about 15 stores. The guy on stilts is my brother, and he had to walk around being called Too Tall Tex. And then the guy with the cowboy hat is my dad, Mac. Just a little history, and that's my dad on the left there, back in 1981 when they first started the business. And his partner, Mark, went back to practicing law, so my dad bought him out and grew the company. And the original name of the company was M&M Meat Shops, Meat and Fixins, if you can believe it. So they figured out that that was too long and changed it to M&M Meat Shops. And about 3 years ago, we just rebranded, and we're now M&M Food Market. This is a picture of the first store, nice ferns hanging planters and wood paneling. And one of our very first product lists, which includes frog legs even on it. We sold frog legs, frozen frog legs. All right, so my F3 for you is, I'm just giving you a little bit of background on where I come from and why I can be up here telling you what to think about when you're buying into a franchise. So because of my upbringing with M&M Food Market, I have the experience on the franchisor side and worked a lot with franchisees. Actually did everything from dressing up as Kelly Kebab to helping develop Western Canada. And then in 2000, I became a multi-unit franchisee on Vancouver Island. So I switched sides and put on a different hat and became a franchisee, which I still am to this day, 17 years later. And a couple years ago, I decided to take everything I'd learned and put that all to good use and help franchisors with assessing whether they should franchise and then getting over the growth roadblocks and with their franchisees and relationships and that sort of thing. So that's my background and where I come from. I call it the F3. So why are you here? I'm guessing that it's probably a combination of you want to make a living with being a small business owner, but you're here because you're thinking that it's less risk to go rather than starting from scratch on your own. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Let's take a little quick look here at the pros and cons of joining a franchise. So the pros, which I'm sure you probably have thought about, the number one thing I think is it's less risk. So you have a business model that's already proven, you've got brand awareness, and you get support and help from the franchisor. Also, the franchisor is the one that's really working hard to drive the brand and keep it fresh and keep it on, on people's top of their minds. And then also you get to be part of a team. So you're not in it totally alone. You've got franchisees that you can collaborate with, your peers, and you've got the head office support as well to help you achieve success. The downside is that when you're a franchisee, you can't be as creative as you might want to be and entrepreneurial. A lot of people call franchisees entrepreneurs, and having lived and breathed being a franchisee for 17 years, I wouldn't use the term entrepreneurial because you're following a system. So there's ways to be creative, but you're really you have to really understand that you're going to have to follow the system to be successful. It won't work if you you're trying to reinvent the wheel. And decision making moves a lot slower because franchisees need to buy in, and no yawning. That's making me feel bad. And then thirdly, you have to give up some of the profit, right? So when people are assessing whether they want to be a franchisee or not, they have to think about whether they can make more money with not having to give up the profit. We're going to skip this slide here. You can see me after if you want to see that. We're going to talk a little bit about the DNA to be of a franchisee. So this is the questions, there are things that you should think about yourself. So as a franchisee, you need to be financially prepared. And this is one of the most important things, I think, or the things that gets overlooked. Having worked with franchisees in the late 90s that were undercapitalized and just couldn't spend the next, $30,000 they needed to spend to get the inventory they were going to sell. So they couldn't invest in the growth of their business. So you're going to need to have the initial investment, but also, and every franchise brand will be a little different, but find out what the working capital you're going to need in the first 6 months or maybe a year. There's a good chance you're not going to take money out of the business probably for maybe at least a year. Find out what that expectation will be. What are you going to need to have to carry the business? Also, as a franchisee, you need, I call it a touch of entrepreneurialism. So, you are going to be following a system, but there's things that there's some local marketing and some things where you need to be a little bit creative. So a touch of entrepreneurialism is a good thing. You need to be sales oriented. It's a common myth that the franchisors, you're just going to stand there in your store or whatever your service is, and that the business is all going to come to you. But that's not the point, and that's not the expectation or the reality of it. So you have to have a sales-oriented mindset. You need to have passion for the brand, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the 5 Rockstar questions. But you have to really love the brand. It's not a matter of what's going to make me the most money, because we'll get into that a little bit later, but that's not going to work. You need to be hardworking. Another common myth. I love when I was a field trainer and I would show up at a store and the franchisee would hand me their key and say, okay, so the freezer temperature wasn't cold enough and they thought that they could just expect the head office staff to wait it out, till 1 in the morning. Well, they went home and got their beauty sleep. It is a franchise. There is a system developed, but it's your business. So you need to be the one that's working hard and making it work. You can't rely on the franchisor to get the work done. You need to be a leader. So while you may not be an entrepreneur, you do need to be a leader because you're going to be leading your staff. Most businesses have staff. I guess there's the odd one that it's a one-person job, but most franchises, you're going to have staff. And I see this common in the work that I do now, where a franchisee decides to get into a business because they love the concept, but they're not a leader. So their staff are taking advantage of them. They can't figure out how to engage their staff and get them to do what they need them to do. You need to be community oriented. And so what I mean by this is that the franchisors probably figured out ways to build the business that might be things like, say it's a juice business, and to go to this event works really well, so you need to be comfortable going out into the community. Most businesses have some element of that, whether you're going into a show or you're going to networking events, so it's pretty important to be community oriented. You need to be patient, because as the awesome ideas come through, it takes a while for ideas to be kind of move through the system and be accepted and approved. And you need to be systems oriented. In the last few years, one thing that's getting really, or has become really common and popular is that they're figuring out that veterans, military veterans, make awesome franchisees because they're really good at following a system and they understand the importance of it. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. They're actually often, franchises will give discounts to veterans just because they know that they'll be good operators. All right, so let's move on to the 5 Rockstar questions. I'm calling them Rockstar questions because I think you are smart enough to figure out some of the basic questions you should ask, like what's the initial investment and what are the royalties in a business. And if you do need help with those basic questions, you can come and see me after at the round table. I'm happy to chat about that. But we're going to talk more about the Rockstar questions that I have come up with, based on my experience as both franchisor, franchisee, and my experience with clients right now and what I see. So this is like the full, approach to really what I think people should be asking. All right, you guys ready? Rockstar question number 1. Do you like that? Coming in kind of cool like that. So, do you have passion for the brand? Do you love the deliverable? Do you love the product or the service that the company is selling? What about the people behind it? Who's driving the bus in this business? Are they people that inspire you? Are they people that you believe in and that they're good people that align with you? What about the story behind, what's the story behind why that business exists? It might be something like making lives healthier and that resonates with you, or whatever it is. And just overall, what's the concept? Do you love this concept? As I said before, a common misconception is that the product is going to sell itself, or the service is going to sell itself because it's a franchise. But really, this is rarely the case that the franchisor does all the work to drive the business. They're responsible for some of that, and you're responsible for some of that. So you have to love it, and you are getting into a long-term agreement, usually 10 years. So you don't want to get in and a couple years in realize that it's just not something you love. All right, number 2. You ready? Everybody awake? What are the company's purpose and core values? What is the why of the business? Why do they exist? And what are their core values? All the successful franchisors and generally just companies out there, the ones that are super successful are uber clear on what it is that or why they exist. They've done the work to figure this out so that everybody in the organization can be aligned. For example, Nurse Next Door's why or purpose is making lives better. So if that resonates with you, then you can, right away, you can tell whether that's something that gets you excited. Property Guys is disrupt the broken model. One of my favorites for clarity on their why and their core values is Tutor Doctor. Have you guys heard of Tutor Doctor? Tutor Doctor, so they're in like 80 countries, and they're Canadian, based out of Toronto company, so doing really well, a great franchise to take a look at. When you go on their website, you can actually click on mission and values and find the statement here. There's their logo. Right there, their statement is the mission of Tutor Doctor is to change the trajectory of students' lives. They even have on their, they've even got their core values right there. And so you want to look at that and make sure it resonates with you and aligns with what motivates you and drives you. And taking a step back even from that, does the company even have clarity or know their purpose and core values? I'm shocked when I go out there and see how many people or companies haven't even figured that out. That's a red flag, because they aren't growing. Those companies don't grow as successful. Everybody needs to be on the same page, and this is how companies are doing it. All right, question number 3. Let's see how this one comes in. Ooh, I like it. My kids taught me this. What support systems does the franchisor have set up for franchisees? So you want to find out exactly what they're doing to support their franchisees. So you can ask questions like, how often do we see our area manager? If we have a good idea, how do we share our input? Because when you're on the front line, you see things differently than the people in the head office. And there needs to be a system in place for you to share that input. Some of the biggest, neatest ideas come from franchisees. Big Mac from McDonald's was a franchisee idea, and even the first drive-through. You want to see how does everybody keep the company, or sorry, how does the company keep everybody on the same page? Like everyone in the loop, how are they sharing information? What support systems do they have for sharing their information? And what strategies do they have for helping franchisees be profitable and be successful, and to how to build their business? What kind of tools and resources does the franchisor provide, and how? And this is one of my favorite areas in franchising. So if you have any questions to further understand support systems in franchising, come see me after. It's one of my superpowers. It's what I love. Question number 4. Look at that. I was having a little bit too much fun, I think. How many transfers and or closures has the franchise company experienced, and why? I think this one's pretty obvious. If there's a lot of closures, something must be going on, or if they've continuously turned over franchisees, there's something going on there. And lastly, number 5, this one's another one of my favorites. What technology does the company have in place to create efficiencies for franchisees? I'm a big ambassador of how technology creates efficiencies because it increases the profitability for the franchisee when there's efficiencies in place. And there are some key points though. It needs to be simple and easy to use. So if you're looking at a franchise, find out what technology they have. Ask the other franchisees if they like it. See if you can check it out. What are they using? What technology are they using to communicate with the franchisees? Oops. Sorry, this is not my laptop, so I'm a little bit wonky here. What technology do they have for franchisees to communicate with their peers as well? You want to see what metrics are available, like what metrics are available through technology to benchmark where you're at compared to other locations and other franchises in the company, and what technology is being used to reach the end user, and what data is being tracked to really get to know the target audience. All right, so there's your Rockstar questions, and because you guys are being good, I'm gonna be able to give you the bonus, which is I'm gonna show you the DNA of a franchisor that you should be looking for. So the franchisor needs to have a great idea that makes money. So that's pretty obvious. We'll keep moving on that. They have to be systems minded. So when you're looking at a franchise, see what systems they have in place. If they don't really have a lot of systems in place, or you feel like it's just not that systemized, like they do things differently here than they do there, or like maybe their area managers are out there and one's doing one way and one's doing another way, that's inefficient, and it's not going to lead to the profitability that for you in the end. The franchisor needs to understand that they're in the relationship business. So, there's a lot of people out there that think they'll just use franchising to grow their business, but they don't understand what the mentality is of a franchisee, so they don't nurture the relationship. So you want to make sure that they really understand what the franchisee is giving up. That you're giving up potentially your life savings to become a franchisee in their brand, and maybe you're giving up some other cool opportunities. So it's really important that the franchisor gets that. Franchisor also obviously needs to be a leader, and they need to be transparent. So what kind of information are they sharing through the company? Because as a franchisee, when the franchisor makes a decision that you don't understand and you don't know why they made it, it's extremely frustrating. Okay, now we're going to use these different kind of bags to carry product out. And we're in the front line thinking, these bags suck. These bags are breaking, or like, why are you making the change? So transparency is everything from why decisions are being made to sharing as much of the metrics of the the corporate location or whatever they can share, so that you can have a better understanding of the business, and you'll buy in more. You'll be more loyal to the brand if you understand, why decisions are being made. They need to be compassionate, and this is something I see in my role now, where the field consultant or operations person is out in the field, and they're talking to the franchisees like they're employees. And it's like they don't get it. This person invested maybe $400,000, and they're actually more like your customer as a franchisor. Like the franchisor should see you, the franchisee, as more of like a customer, and be compassionate when you have challenges and when you're needing help. You're not making money, or you're having trouble with your marketing, or whatever you need help with. They should be an advocate for the brand and for what they're doing in that industry, and they should also be an advocate for you as a franchisee. So they need to be out there and protecting and advocating for you. And they need to be innovative. So you want to look at what they've done in the past to be innovative and see what track they're on, ask them questions about what their plans are to continue to stay innovative. And they need to be collaborative. So you want to see that they're working with the franchisees, asking the franchisees for input. Again, what systems do they have in place for that so that they can get that information from franchisees? And how are they encouraging the franchise peers to be collaborative with each other? Because there's a ton of value in that. You know, if I see some metrics from another location of my business as a franchisee, I can call that person up and say, hey, what are you doing? You must be doing something different. And what is it? And then you find out, you know, some new business building ideas. And this is my favorite. Most importantly, I don't know about you guys, but I think they need to be fun. So I'd be looking for that. All right. So I'm not sure how long that was, but we could do some group Q&A if anybody has any questions about anything on the franchisor side, franchisee, other questions to ask a franchisor, how to make the final decision. Come on, Alan. Alan, you got one? No? Gary? Anyone? Yeah. Sorry, can you say that again? I caught. Company would expect what would be the benefit of franchise versus multi-locations. Okay. So are you saying what is the benefit to the franchisor to choose a single unit versus a multi-unit franchisee? Oh, here we go. Thank you.
To go franchisee versus multi-locations.
Oh, okay, so like franchising versus corporate expansion. Did you say what are the benefits?
Well,
or how to make that decision?
Yeah, I mean it's a decision, right? I mean, one is obviously cash flow, you know, from your franchisees, but.
Well, you're talking to the right person. That's exactly what I help people with. But I will tell you, actually, I'll go back to a slide here that I skipped over. Probably one of the big things you want to think about if you're thinking of franchising a business is whether you want to have local partners in the communities. Am I getting to the answer? Is that what you're asking? So do you want to have local partners running the business as opposed to paying a corporate person? So if you're paying a manager in a community, they're not generally going to be as invested, and it costs a lot to incentivize them to do what a franchisee would naturally do because they've already invested. Financially, the growth of a franchise, there's a lot of capital investment. That's a common myth. People think that if they're going to franchise their business that they can just leverage the investment from the franchisees. But to properly grow a franchise, there's actually, I say it can be up to $200,000 investment. But what happens is the growth trajectory goes like this once you hit, it's called royalty self-sufficiency, which is in around like the 50 unit range, 50 to 100 units, depending on the brand. So it's being being prepared financially. That is a key consideration. There's a lot of other things to it. So we could actually chat after too if you want. Yeah, I can go further to that.
Hi, Angela.
Hello.
You mentioned the key metrics, the things that franchisees have to look out for.
Yep.
Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So the metrics would be, I would be looking, does the franchisor have a clear understanding of two things? One is unit economics. Do they understand what is the business model to make this a success? So, for example, at M&M, we know that our labor costs should be around 7% of sales. When our labor costs, when we first opened our stores on Vancouver Island, the projections we had once we signed on were for like $900,000. And I like to say we blew the projections out of the water. I like to say it's because we were so awesome, but it's because the people knew the brand, right? So like we had lineups at our doors. We did 1.7 million in our first year. So we were like, oh, this is awesome, we're rocking. So let's pay our staff more because, and I think you've heard this story, Gary, but let's pay our staff more because they'll work harder and we can hire better quality staff. But what we realized, it just made them lazy and complacent. So there's a reason why the franchisor was saying your labor cost should be 7%. Because if you go over that, your staff get lazy. If you go under that, you're under-servicing your end user. So you want the franchisor to be really clear on what the percentages that you need to spend on marketing, rent. You know, some of those, there's some key numbers in there. So marketing, rent, labor, depends on the business, right? The other half of the coin, so that's unit economics. The other half of the coin is what are the key performance indicators of the business? What are the numbers that you're going to be watching? So at M&M, for example, it's a retail store, we watch our gross margins. We watch our average sale per customer, and we know the targets. So we can throughout the day even go on the computer and check where we're at and go, oh, our gross margin's low. We need to start selling some things that aren't on sale. Now you know our secret. So that we can pay the bills at the end of the day and pay the staff, right? So the other KPIs, it might be something like, if you're service-based, it might be conversion to membership. If say it's a fitness studio or something, it could be total sales. Depends on the business, but what are the metrics, what are the KPIs, the key performance indicators that are going to make it clear that you're going to make money? So you want them to be clear on their unit economics and their KPIs for that business. How's that? All right. Here's my benefits, and hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at that, because that's to answer the why, like, what's the benefit of franchising on the franchisor side and as a franchisee. All right. Well, I think we are almost at the end. Is there any other questions? All right. So you guys going to go be rock stars? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and what you're looking at investing in. And yeah, I think it's really important to do a lot of homework. Do your due diligence. Make sure you understand the legal documents. If you get to that stage, that you really understand what's in them, because the legal documents are going to be 100% in favor of the franchisor, and they're like that for a reason, because it protects the brand. It's a good thing, but you won't be able to change that, and you have to make sure that you're comfortable with what, like, the franchise agreement is telling you you need to do. So those are my tips for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation, and if not, I hope you had a good nap. Okay, thank you.